Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm very excited to have Anke Herrmann with me today. Anke is a business coach and tech monster whisperer, author, podcaster, and dog lover. In 2004, she quit her IT job in the UK to start her own business in Spain. Today, she brings simplicity, trust, and transparency to online tech to help passion-driven solopreneurs building flourishing businesses. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. I keep, I see you all over Facebook. You seem to be one very, very busy woman. So I'm very excited we actually pinned you down. So before we get into all the wonderful things that you're doing, there's so many of them, I'd love to hear a little bit about what brought you to the principles and how it affected you.
Yeah. Well, it's actually been by accident almost. I think probably with everybody. I'd moved to Spain and I sort of started that sewing business with a naivety that was kind of stupid, but it was also, I think, what made it actually work because, I wasn't up in my head. But then it did come with challenges that I did not expect at all. So basically there came the point of burnout and then, like, I had what you'd now in hindsight would call a huge insight, when all of a sudden you're like, oh boy, and you see something that changes everything, right? And after that, my experience of that sewing business changed from stressed out, super busy, hustle to, actually, this is really cool. I'm spending most of my time in creative flow. And this is actually now finally what I actually wanted. And the idea of wanting to support other people in a similar situation, people who had this successful corporate career, but still that inkling like, God, there's got to be more to life than this. That all the outside success, there was still that, I don't really feel fulfilled. There's so much of me that doesn't get to be expressed. And that's when the idea popped into mind, well, how can I best support other people on that journey? And, coaches do that. And then it was, I don't know how many people I've heard tell a similar story. It was, I stumbled across Nicola Bird, right? And I stumbled because obviously being a software developer, the first thing I looked for was, let me find some software to run a coaching business, right? So, and I stumbled across the jigsaw box she was running at the time. And so I got on her mailing list, and then she had a promotion, and it was called Coaching from the Inside Out. And that caught my attention because it really described my experience of that whole turnaround in my own business. And it's like, yeah, really on the outside, nothing changed. I had just seen something new that had this huge impact. So that pulled me in. And then there was, it's like, okay, Michael Neal, who is that guy, right? And then it was like, he was talking 3 principles. What is that? And so, yeah, like the rest is history. And it was really almost, in hindsight, it explained what had happened, right? So it was basically, that's what that was. And it also explained why the things that had worked did actually work, despite what everybody thought, and why the stuff that didn't work. It was like, right.
I love that when that happens. It's that, because it, like we always say, the principles are in action whether we know about it or not.
Yes.
So
I'm a classic example for that. Yeah.
So you already, I love your story, and we have so much in common. I used to be a costume designer here in LA. So,
Oh,
yeah, it was.
We're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm done with that now. But it was it was a great life. But anyway, yeah, I love what you're saying is that you saw what was happening before you even understood the principles, and that's because they're always in action, whether we know them or not, is what we always say. But sometimes it's so hard for us to really see that it's not, it's not coming from the outside in, that it is coming via our thinking, therefore inside out.
Yeah.
So do you still, I was looking at your website, do you still make flamenco costumes?
Well, if you tempt me with the right project, I might crumble, right? But I'm pretty busy with what I'm doing now, so there's no more client work now. Yeah. So I'm back to hobby sewing, basically.
Hobby sewing. But I do see that you help people create a business if they want to create a business like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, obviously, when I first started out, that was the first direction I looked into, thinking other people who want to turn their, initially I was even looking at people who want to build a sewing business, but I quickly saw, you know what, this building a business thing has nothing to do with sewing, right? And then it was like, okay, other creative kind of passions, but then it doesn't even have anything to do with that, right? I always say, like, the only thing I really need from people is they need to be passionate about what they do, what they want to bring into what they want to create in the world. Because I'm like, I've got a lot of enthusiasm and I know it. And so I always say, like, I can't be more passionate about your thing than you are. So, I need people to have a lot of passion for what they do. But sometimes it's a creative, passion, but sometimes it's a mission, sometimes it's a cause, something that they want to, create in the world.
Yeah.
And
give us some examples of some businesses that people have come to you with their ideas and some of the thinking that's holding them back and what you help them with.
Well, it's funny because at the end of the day, the types of businesses are quite similar. They're most of the time, they're women 50 and over. They've come to a point in their life where they say, either it's like, oh God, another 15 years and that job's going to kill me, or they've been made redundant and the kids are out of the house. And now there's this like, what am I going to do with my life now? Now it's time for me. Now it's time to finally do what I want to do, what really fills me up, what like nourishes the soul. And quite often sometimes they're kind of like, well, I'm not really sure how exactly, but most of the time they know exactly what they want to create. Right? It's like, I'm really into this creative thing, or sometimes they're healers. Sometimes they've written a book about something. Sometimes it's, I don't know, it can be like, the relationship between mother and daughter, or, women over 50 or something. And I want to create this, and I want to do retreats, and I want to have an online course, and on and and then there's all these ideas, and they can visualize. They're often quite visionary and creative, but then it's like, okay, so what do I have to do tomorrow to make that happen, right? And so I bring, the thing I have, it's like I've got this very creative, I speak to a creative person, we're like instantly on the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. But I also have a background in software development, right? So I'm kind of very geeky and very structured. And so to help them bring the fluffy idea to earth, mm-hmm. and especially recently, I've just published my first book. There's a few others sort of brewing, but because I noticed the one, I didn't even want to go into the tech side of things, right? It was a bit like, I used to do tech and it's fun. I still love it. And I do my own websites, do my own whatever. But if I need an app for something, I'll build it. But, but then it was always, people would ask, can you help me with this? And but that's easy. Like, that's not the thing. That's not the issue. Like what looks like a tech problem never is. But you could see, well, that's what people are looking for help with. right? And so I finally kind of got the hint and thought, well, why shouldn't I bring that in? Why shouldn't I help them see the path? And we actually, implement it together. So at the end of working with me, you're going to have this thing running, right? Not just now I know how to do it, and then I get lost in the jungle. It's literally, no, we get it done, and we get it done together.
How many people have, great vision, but the actual sort of implementing certain steps to get them to where they want can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful that you can bring that technical knowledge in. So is this mostly for people that are having online businesses or online courses?
Not necessarily. No, I do work quite a lot with people who run sewing businesses where the online part, you would say, everybody has some sort of online presence these days, right? So, people Google you. People will Google you. So, you better make sure they find something when they do. So, but the actual business itself, some of them can be, yoga teachers or, so it doesn't necessarily have to be an online business, but there's always an online element to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, exactly. Especially these days, there's a lot of
absolutely
are doing more online than we would have done in the past. So
yeah, and it has really, I've seen a lot of acceleration in the last few months where you can really see now how people who before thought, oh yeah, I know, should really do some, but it wasn't important and it wasn't urgent, and with all this situation now, all of a sudden, it became important and urgent very quickly. So there's a lot of people struggling with this stuff.
So when you work with people, what would you say is some of the thinking that really trips them up in your experience? Is it the technical side, do you think?
I think, people think it's the technology, mm-hmm. right? But, I always say what looks like a tech problem never is, because it's often what happens is they jump to the tools too quickly. And I think it's innocent. It's like, it's when you don't really know, you are vulnerable. You kind of fall for what, and tool providers are obviously being taught that, no, you can't, nobody wants a tool. You need to sell the solution. You need to sell the outcome. So they sell the outcome, right? And people then go and get the tool and think that, okay, that's going to give me the outcome. And they start looking and trying to make a decision on the tool before they have an idea what they're trying to do. And then it's overwhelming. That's like when you walk into a hardware store and says, I want to build something, not really sure what yet, let me just walk. And then you walk in there and you're like, what is all that stuff? Mm-hmm. And then you can't even ask for help, because if you haven't got a clue what you're actually trying to build, what are you going to ask the person helping you? And that is the kind of situation that a lot of people get themselves into. And there's obviously the good old, I'm too old for this. I'm a woman. I'm not technical. It's all too difficult. And it kind of stops them from even reading the error message, basically, or reading the manual. There's that sensation that I'm, for some reason, the kind of person who can't learn this. Right? And that's the kind of stuff that I'm very happily dismantle
I know.
And question and challenge all of that.
Yeah, those very set ideas of who we are and the confines of that, and blowing that up and seeing what's possible.
Yeah,
very, very aware of that myself.
Yeah.
So I love the tech monster whisperer. So where
me too.
Monica come from?
Well, it came from the book, really. The book's called Taming the Tech Monster, and it has a little tech monster there, so, and it was like, okay, I'm the tech monster tamer, and somebody somewhere said, oh, tech monster whisperer, like the dog whisperer. And I, and I liked it. so I'm going to run with it. Yeah. And it's funny because it's something that people seem to be resonating with. It pulls out a giggle, and at the end of the day, it's really the intention with all of that to take the heaviness and the seriousness out of it, and show people how, when you come from this, I mean, isn't that just like real life? When you don't take your thinking so seriously, when you question your assumptions, when you look at it more as an experiment, almost like a game, let's see how this works, right? That all of a sudden things become possible that seemed to be, totally out of reach just a second ago. And that really it kind of sums it up quite nicely.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I think for so many of us, or certainly my first part of my life used to be about taking things so seriously and not wanting to play and not wanting to make a mistake or, make a fool of myself or whatever. And, the beauty of this understanding is like, oh no, this is a playground.
Absolutely.
You're meant to get messy and play and explore and fall flat on your face and not give a damn. So
absolutely. Yeah. And that is exactly the thing that is like, and I think most of the time, the people I work with, they're in their 50s and over. They've seen that, right? They've seen that, but they, for some reason, think it doesn't apply to tech. And I'm like, oh boy, yes, it does.
Yeah. So great. So the book is already out. Is that the one you've just finished?
Yep. Yep. That was published in mid-May. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to read that. See if there's any tech monsters still lurking in my consciousness. So you said that there were some other books you're working on. I'm curious, what are those books? What are some other titles that are attracting your attention?
Well, there is one that is almost like it has to come out, because it's I don't know how many times I've heard myself say it in conversations. And working title, it's along the lines of, don't try and control the ripples, just throw the stone.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God.
Right?
That's a great one.
Because it's one of the things that I see all the time, that people hold back from doing something or trying something out, because there's always that urge to try and control the outcome. And I think it's like misunderstanding well-meaning, misguided advice in a sense, because it's like, oh, you need to be productive. You don't waste your time faffing around. Like, you need to be strategic and do only the things in your business that actually help you grow your business. Right now, people go off and try and only do the things that guarantee an outcome or guarantee a result. And in my experience, the world just doesn't work like that. Right. And I every time I share an example, and I have like a whole bunch of funny examples like that, like really weird stuff, where when I did something just because I followed a hunch, I followed like, I don't know, sounds like fun. I sent the email, hit send before I could talk myself out of it. And then all of a sudden, sometimes quite some time later, sometimes quickly, soon after, opportunities show up and things emerge that, like, you can't make this up. Like, you cannot plan that, right? I think I would say, like, you have to be generous with the stone throwing and trust that there will be ripples, but don't waste your time and energy trying to control them. And every time I share a story like that, I'm like, oh, I've got so many stories. I don't even know where to start. I've got to write a book on that. And I'm like, yeah, one day that book's going to get written,
That's so great. I've got a story for you to go in your book. I always say that, it's so funny. I studied fashion design in the UK, and I came here on holiday to California, to, Hollywood, basically, with no, not even like, oh, well, I did fashion design. And I was like, no, I'm going back to the UK and I'm going to become a psychologist. And then while I was here on holiday, somebody offered me a job in Hollywood. And I was like, wow, Well, it was just, like you said, it was like, I always say it's following the golden thread. Instead of having a big master plan that has you looking all the way over there, that if you just see what's around you and what like
that exactly.
just showing up in the moment and follow that. rather than saying I did this and it's going to go this way, and this way, and this way. So,
because a lot of the time, and that's exactly it. And you've just given me an idea, right? Because I was actually thinking of having a collection of the things that I've experienced. But now I'm like, oh, what's stopping me from including other people? That's more fun. So you've given me an idea just now. Yeah. And because people often, in that urge to try and have that certainty, they end up not doing anything. That's the problem.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said that it was about business, and I don't normally coach people in business. Mine's sort of more sort of around relationship, especially codependency and narcissistic abuse. But they were saying to me, well, it's like I'm in the middle, and I could either go north or south or east or west, and I'm scared of walking in the wrong direction. And I was thinking, oh my God, that must be hell to live thinking that any step you take could be in the wrong direction. And I was like, I'd get off that right now, because any step you take is taking you somewhere, and you'll get feedback. Does this feel like something I want to pursue or not? And you just keep moving and course correcting rather than frozen in place. And
I think it's I always have I have a problem with that when people say I want to get it right, and I'm like, or I'm worried that it's wrong. It's like, well, how do you decide that, and when do you decide that? Something that looks like a mistake now might turn out, usually turns out to be a blessing in disguise. You look at the same situation 5 years later, and then you think, oh, well, that was the best thing that could happen to me. When do you make that decision? Like, how do you even decide what's right or wrong? I think it seems so arbitrary and so made up that it doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, that's so great. I always say, we're like looking at through this little pinhole of what we think things should look like. We haven't a clue that mind has this giant, great big painting going on that we can't see. But it is trusting that some magnificent picture is out there that we just can't take in our innocent little human minds. So,
absolutely.
That sounds great. So, so if you had words of wisdom for people that are listening, that, well, besides calling you obviously for business, but just say that they have the creativity, they have the juice, they have the idea, and they just don't know what that next step is. But what is there a sort of a general direction that you would point somebody in if they're at that stage? Fear, lots of thinking around it.
Yeah, I mean, see, what I point people to is that, hey, remember, whatever you want to build, it's a creative process, right? Then that's the other book, right? It's why proven success formulas don't work. Because they make it out as if this one thing that's taking you from A to B in that straight, smooth, very short line, and it's like, no, this is a creative process. So there's an exploration phase. Allow yourself to suss out, to learn, to figure out, to try stuff. And then you make a decision of, okay, no, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. And allow yourself to go through that process. Right, and have these iterations of building what you want to build, and be fine with, okay, it might not be perfect the first time round, right? Because you have only your own idea, and when you actually, sometimes you might not get it because there's other factors that you might not have thought about. Usually there's clients, which means other people involved. You have to try and control those when you can't even control yourself. And so it's you walk out with your best hypothesis. Look at it as an experiment rather than a test, right? And it's not a race either. Just, basically come at it with that playful, let's see what happens. Let's see, learn and evolve, and allow yourself to make mistakes, and basically one step at a time, and be nice to yourself. Don't be be a dick and beat yourself up over everything.
That's so great. And I love what you're saying, and it's so true. It's not a race. I mean, we make up these ridiculous rules for ourselves that time frames and things have to be done, or we have to be at a certain place in this time. And it's like, who made up that rule? Oh, we made it up. I made it up.
Yeah, I know. I remember I wrote a post on LinkedIn. It was very provocative. I love stuff like that. A little bit of shit there. And I called it Goals Are Stupid. Right. And it was because, I'm obviously not saying they're always stupid, but the reason that the point was that what you just said, it was that it's so easy to forget that it's an arbitrary milestone with an arbitrary deadline. You made it up. And then you use it to put yourself under pressure. And fast, who says that fast is better? I always say, approach it like a piece of music. It isn't about who gets to the end first.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so true. And what you're talking about, I wrote a blog about, which is the same thing, is standards are arbitrary too. We make that up as well, of what the standard it should reach. It's like, well, who said it needs to reach a certain thing? And who's judging this anyway? Besides
exactly
again. So we just completely nobble ourselves before we've even started with all the shoulds and the oughts and the whatever.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I really, when we get too much into that thinking and planning and thinking it's all us that's creating this, completely and utterly, forgetting who's really creating this and what's moving through us. So,
There's this famous quote by Marianne Williamson that I can't quote fully, but it's basically she's saying that, it's not your job. You don't even have to like it. All you have to do is keep the channel open, and let the creative life force flow through you. And I think I think it's all innocent, because when you're new somewhere, obviously you always assume, and if other people have done this for longer, then they know better in a lot of ways. So there's nothing wrong with learning from other people. But when you get stuck there, that you think other people know better, there's a point where, that won't work anymore. That won't get, you have to come to that point where, okay, you learn what you can learn, but then you do what makes sense to you and trust that your own creativity and resourcefulness and the skills and experience that you have, that they're the best guide you can follow in the end.
Yeah, I love that. I think so many people do get stuck in following a template laid out by
absolutely.
And the thing is, that template was wonderful for them because they were actually co-creating with creative genius, mind, whatever you want to call it. But and yours might be similar or it might be completely different. But the point
absolutely,
is into what your unique energy and creativity is pointing you in, what direction it's pointing you in, as opposed to follow that path. So
absolutely. And embracing that uncertainty, because the reason people follow other like that thing is they're craving the certainty. They want certainty in where there isn't any.
Well, there's never any.
There's never any. That's the thing. And the more you can relax into that and think, well, okay, we haven't got a clue, and enjoy the ride, then you no longer need to have other people tell you the way.
Exactly. I love that. And that's so true for me. I am so happy to be hands off the wheel. I'm being guided and driven. I haven't a clue where I'm going half the time.
But that's the fun part though, isn't it?
It is. It's like, oh, we're here today with this idea. All right then. So that's so great. So we are actually come to the end of our time, but just give us your website, how people can contact you, and anything new that you're doing right now. I know you do a fabulous business, passionate business podcast, but anything else that's coming up that people should be aware of?
Well, I'm easy to find. AnkeHerrmann.com, my main website. TamingTheTechMonster.com is the companion website to the book. So that's obviously where you can get the book and join a little community with, extra resources and a safe place to ask these questions that you're too embarrassed to ask anywhere else. And there's the Passion Business podcast. And I'm always coming up with something. I think there is a plan to build and develop a program and an online course based on the book, that same Taming the Tech Monster topic. So that's coming next, basically.
Oh, that's fabulous. I'm going to definitely take a look at that book myself. So, thank you. It's been such a pleasure having you on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. That was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope to see you in person soon.
I know. That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at deladeyjones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.